All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nun. You see here, I got my good friend, past guest. He's been here more than like any. Mr. Wolf. Hello, Mr. Wolf, and welcome back to Stu and the Nun, helping me host tonight.
Hey, thanks, Stu. Glad to be here. Been a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, you got the Americano media hat on, representing there. I see that. And in a uniquely lit room. It's got kind of this red haze behind you. Almost like, do you have like the Canadian wildfire smoke coming through your house? Because that's what it looks like.
You know, it almost feels like it.
Yeah. But no, good to have you on. Hey, a lot of stuff to cover. Thanks for accepting the invite to come on. We got a lot of things to talk about tonight. But how have you been? And what's been going on in your world that you want to bring our listeners and viewers up on?
Just moved myself up from Miami back into DC for the time being, and still working on getting some companies back up and moving the network forward.
Good deal. Good. Yeah, you've been you've been down in the free state of Florida for a while.
Yeah, I actually miss it already.
I bet, especially in the area you're at. But yeah, well, but you're tuned in tight to what's going on in the world and all things politics and everything else. So let's chat about that. I mean, obviously we had the news today of the third indictment. Every one of them's a history setter because it's never been done before. Now 3 indictments, 2 federal and 1 state, but a state one trying to quote federal law. So that's a whole other issue. So we have that. We got a lot of things happening in the news this week with testimonies and whistleblowers and all kind of stuff. So let's get right in it. So obviously prior to today in the indictment, this Devin Archer testimony, which I was surprised, they did it behind closed doors and recorded. So there wasn't, which I liked. And the fact you didn't have all the political grandstanding by members of the parties, right? Which I've been saying for a while. I've kind of taken the opinion that, they should just not televise any of these congressional hearings because I think they would get down to it and do stuff. I don't think they need Maxine Waters or Mitch McConnell or any of them to sit there and just pontificate for 5 minutes when they should be asking questions. But they had this hearing. Was it yesterday? Day before yesterday? I can't remember now.
Yesterday. And
it's already out. The text is released. And I kind of went, why do they even have it behind closed doors? What can you tell me about this? Why do they do this? And isn't that supposed to be kept secret, or is it supposed to be released? And if so, why even do it privately?
Back when I was with the VA, we always knew anything that was given to the Hill under any circumstance was going to be leaked, period. Whether it's an opposition or a favorable party, somebody was going to leak it eventually. This is the same thing. This was just too hot for them to handle. So they got it I believe Fox was the first out with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not sure who got their fingers on it from that, but they do this in order to set the stage for what they're going to discuss, what the temperature is going to be, and as you can tell, this is going to be the topic throughout the weekend.
Yeah, and but one thing I think is kind of overlooked, um, and isn't really getting a lot of attention. Even though it does have a lot of views. When I was looking at earlier, I don't know if you've been following Tucker Carlson's shows, like little
Very
mini
well.
shows on Twitter, but I mean, he had Devin Archer on yesterday, and it was a great
Right
interview.
after his testimony.
Right after his testimony, Tucker got some. He's got some pull. That dude, I'm sure everybody would have loved to have had him, and probably tried to offer him everything under the sun. But he went right on, talked very matter of factly, open, didn't do any "I can't talk about this," any of that kind of stuff, um, and just opened up and answered anything, and gave his opinion, not just answered like yes or no, but gave his perspective and his personal opinion on actions and words and events. Have you had a chance to see that?
No, I saw that it was posted, but I haven't gone through all of it. I've seen some of the excerpts and some of the script from it, but it is pretty long.
Yeah, I think it's 20 minutes or so. It's not too bad. That's one thing I like about Tucker's new format on Twitter. Hold on, I'm just getting my headphone cable. It's kind of pulling. Is that I mean, he's right to the point. Like, I've really become a fan of his stuff. I really got turned on when his Ice Cube 2-part Ice Cube interview,
Yeah, that was
which
fun.
was phenomenal. And I started going back watching some of his other stuff that he's only got a handful of them up so far, but um, with this one, I was so surprised he had Devin Archer. Yeah, within an hour or two of him coming out of testimony, went right in. But yeah, I mean, it's he didn't come out with any. It sounded to me and I've read part of the transcript and stuff, but it
Mhm.
sounded to me like he answered what he knew, and that was damning enough. And stuff that he wasn't, like phone calls that he wasn't privy to, that Hunter would walk off and that kind of stuff. Like, he admitted that he just said, "Hey, I don't know if the $5 million from the dude in Ukraine went to Joe Biden. I never saw it." He goes, "I just don't know." He said, "But I know $5 million went to Hunter." And so he didn't lean out too far over his skis, which could cause him to be tripped up and would make people think he wasn't honest. I mean, he seemed to really maintain his honest integrity and just answered it was, and didn't try to, like, get more clicks, if you would. Seemed to be my impression. What
If
about you?
anything, if the justice were to prevail, Hunter would be getting calls from the IRS next, at a minimum, because I don't
Yeah, the
believe
amount
he's
of
going to
money
be
that he
filed.
hasn't paid
Yep,
on.
yep,
Well, if
or claimed,
we'll
or
talk, going on the whistleblowers, right, from the last week. I mean, that one guy, I mean, he was like 2018 he owes this, 2017 he owes this. I mean, they went from 2014 up. I mean, they were tracking exactly what he owes, and that's what they knew about. That's not even counting all this other money. $83,000 a month from Burisma, $3.5 million from the widowed wife of the Moscow mayor, all this money from the CFC. But then you have today, I mean, the one thing about whether he's talking about snorting freaking Parmesan cheese or whatever, I mean, Biden is the gift that keeps on giving because of what he says and gaffes he does and all that kind of stuff, right? Hunter's the gift that keeps on giving to his own detriment, whether it's leaving a laptop, which we would not be talking about any of this had he not left that laptop. I mean, if that would have kept hidden, it would just be a whole bunch of right-wing speculation, right? But that's supported
conspiracy
and was
theories.
evident of a lot of stuff, right? Right. Um, Whether it's that, of course, and with that laptop, all of his own videos and this kind of stuff and this things like that, but also the now the new email that just came out where he bragged about this Chinese chairman he called the super chairman. He said he told Devin Archer he's the Powerball Mega Millions all rolled into one. I mean, he's bragging, and a couple things came out. One, his bragging about the amount of money that'll just keep coming to them, and two, the thing he bragged about, like, hey, if you're Biden, you're pretty much untouchable, and nothing can happen to you, and all that kind of stuff. It's just
It's sickening.
uh it is. But let me ask you, what's more sickening to me than that is the fact that a big part of our country, and starting with the media and others, will blindly put their D glasses on that blind them and would just act like it's nothing to it. For Goldman to come out and say, yeah, Joe called in, but they talked about the weather and stuff. Not 20 times they didn't. Not, not all those. I mean, just
It was all
why
family cheer.
that's more sickening to me is you really think that the American people, 300 something million people or whatever, are that dumb and that ignorant they're going to believe that you think you can just say that and be like, oh, they just talked about the weather? Oh, that's totally normal, right? Who doesn't have their dad call in while they're in the middle of a business meeting, right? When my dad was alive, he would call me all the time during the day. He just would, lose track, not knowing I was working. And my mom was listening. She could support this. And I'd get a call and I'd get worried. I'm like, why is dad? Like it's like 2:00 in the afternoon on Tuesday. And I usually text my mom, like, everything okay? And he's like, oh yeah, your dad, or mom wouldn't know. A lot of times my dad would call and mom was outside mowing or in her blackberry bushes or doing whatever. And she wouldn't even know. But when she goes, yeah, your dad's calling. And I'm like, is everything all right? She goes, yeah, he's wanting to talk. I'm like, okay. But like he wouldn't call. I wasn't going to drop a call, and I sure wasn't going to answer his call in the middle of a meeting. But I wanted to make sure that he wasn't calling for an emergency. But who's in the middle of a business meeting and answers a phone call like in the meeting, right? You may say, hey, my wife just called twice. I got to take this, right? Something's going on, right? That's not normal or something like that. But you're not going to be like in the middle of the boardroom saying, hey, what's up, honey? What's happening? Or what's up, dad or mom or whatever. It's like, I mean,
Well,
I
he's
can't
going
believe you
to
think we're that dumb.
because he can say, "Hey, it's the vice president or the president calling." He's
That's
going
how
to
you
jump
know
on
it's a
the game.
loaded call. It's
Yeah, that's
staged,
right. Yeah.
right? It's a setup. He sends the text. He comes over and sends a text and goes, hey, dad, now's the time to call, right? And then, call in 5 minutes. And then he calls like, oh, look, there's the vice president. I got pulled. My daddy's calling to see how I'm doing and make sure I say hello to everybody. I mean,
Or he's calling to make sure the deal we're doing is done.
yes.
More
Yeah.
than likely.
Don't forget the big guy. Right? But yeah, so this Devin stuff, I mean, the guy's getting ready to go to jail himself for a year and a day or something for defrauding some native corps in upstate New York. So obviously he's not the most reputable. I mean, he's not without his own fault, obviously. But I mean, he was the right-hand man. He got paid along with Hunter Biden on a lot of stuff. And I don't know if I'd consider it a deathbed confession, except I was surprised he even made it. I was really worried that he was going to get smoked before he got in there. But if he's out of prison in a year, maybe he thinks they'll get taken out there, but at least he came out and said it all and it's like, hey, do with it what you will, but here's what it is. So it'd be interesting to see where Comer and the committees take this. But I mean, that guy was right there. There's no denying that he was in the inner circle.
And that part of the planning.
But yeah. He was privy to a lot. What he wasn't, he admitted it. But it'd be interesting to see where they go from here. I just, it gets me that the Dems are so, I don't know what you'd say, man, dumb, ignorant, whatever, oblivious, that they think every time they say something to try to cover this up, that the American people aren't smart enough to see through it, and just lessens their view of the Democrats more and more. Like, you're going to freaking lie to our face? Like,
I think this is
it's got to erode.
ratings keep going up every time one of these drops because it just gets more implausible that the Dems are saying anything truthful.
Well, one interesting thing yesterday was someone broke it down. I forget who. It may have been Gutfeld or Jesse Waters or someone I was listening to, but like everything that whenever something came out, there was like an indictment or something dropped the next day against Trump, right? Devin Archer, boom. Whistleblowers, boom. Like it was, and they broke down each one. I just don't have them handy, but it was just like the timing of every single one of them
within 24
was like they were
hours.
loaded up with the hammer back, just waiting for the next compelling event to say, here's, drop the next one, do this one, do that. But yeah, if you were gonna, I guess, to use the term feeding the beast, if the beast is the Trump support, they are feeding the beast because it continues to climb. And what's funny is a lot of people, the pontificators and the talking heads and the experts, if you would, all keep saying, I can't understand how's he getting charged and indicted and his numbers going. It doesn't make any sense. It can't be real. Well, those are kind of the same words you said when he was winning. Those are the same words you said when he won and when his poll numbers were up and you're going, how could he say I grab him by the pussy and his numbers and people still want to vote for him and how could he say this and people want to vote for him? You couldn't conceive that. And in fact, when the election happened, it took you a long time to grasp, and some people still didn't grasp that he actually won. So it shouldn't surprise a lot of folks if they step back from their very partisan selves and opinions and look at it and go, man, it is just, yeah, it is possible because people see it as a witch hunt and there's substantiation behind that.
And
You
they can
know,
identify with being a witch hunt. Many of them been on the receiving end of what they felt was same thing, whether it's personal or legal. So they can see that this is all trumped up, pardon the pun, but they can
yeah, it
see
was a
that
good
they're
thing.
not being truthful.
Right. Right. Well, I remember back. I know maybe I've talked about it with you. I know I've talked on a few episodes here where very good friends of mine, very conservative friends, when Trump had come out and said that the Obama administration was spying on his Trump Tower and spying on his campaign, and friends of mine called me like, "Dude, really? I mean, there's a limit. Like how he's going to make an accusation like that? There's no way. He's reaching too far and all that stuff." And then it all came true.
It was all
It's like,
truthful.
and everything that Trump said pretty much came true when he make an accusation. And I started my impression or opinion of him was, I mean, I've always said he's been media savvy from the get go. I mean, you look at his shows and his background, he knows how to control the narrative in media. And, that he never, I guess I learned a couple years in administration, he never said anything that he wasn't well aware of what he was saying. Like it had a purpose and a plan. And I've never met him. I have some extended family that have. I know you and others have. But I know some people that really have been close to him in the past. Some mutual friends of ours in the past have been close to him. But for everything I read on him and just see how he's conducted himself, he's never come out and made a claim like, the polar ice caps are gone in 7 years and the world's going to be in flames if we don't, cows keep, farting and these claims that, especially by the environmentalists that come and go and they never happen. And people are like, what happened? I thought we were going to be, the world's going to be. Everything he has said has pretty much been spot on. And I'd have to think hard and research to find something that wasn't. So, I mean, that's why I say pretty much. I can't think of anything that is. I'm sure there was somewhere where his prediction wasn't right or what he claimed never happened. But the guy doesn't just fire off at the mouth, even though it comes across that way. He doesn't just shoot off at the mouth without having something. It's like me with my kids. My kids learned a long time ago, well, I don't make a bet unless I know I'm going to win. When I would say, I'll bet you $1 that this is happening or you're going to do that or whatever, no matter what it was, something at school or home or whatever. Or I would say, and my boys, as my older ones got older, they would tell the youngers, my wife would tell them all, like, don't bet with dad. Dad does not bet to lose. I only bet when I know I'm guaranteed to win. It's almost like Trump only says something when he knows for fact that it's going to be backed up.
He doesn't like to
And
lose.
No, he doesn't. I don't see him as a gambler. He may have casinos, but I don't see him as much of a gambler. So let me ask you, though, we talk about this third indictment. Happened to, you were there for the second one. I think the other one in Florida. You were right there.
Yep.
What's your thoughts on this? You think it's going to help him, hurt him? What are you thinking?
This one was probably the most ridiculous one of them all because this is what we do with January 6th. So I don't understand how they're getting away with this, not just with Trump, but all the rest of them. Remember, the commission has been removed. That's all done and over with. So what are the legal standings for this January 6th investigation at all? There's no way he can get a good trial in the DC courts. No chance. So I think they're pegging it that this will be the one that, quote unquote, gets him. This will be the one that he won't be able to hide from or dodge around or pull some legalese. They will still convict him. And that even though it may get overturned eventually, carrying through the election, he will be convicted. So this is the one that they put it the latest one so far, and most likely to carry through the election,
So they're trying to rush this
Unless
one,
the
right?
Supreme
Aren't they
Court
trying to?
steps in at some point and says, "Hey, enough of this jackassery. You know, this is gone."
But aren't they trying to push this one to happen in May of 2024? I
Yes,
think this one, yeah.
but the
But
thing is,
one of
by
the
the time
things,
the
what,
appeals go through, he'll
right,
still
right.
be convicted.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, a lot of the legal experts in the last 24 hours, even before it came out today, just based on what Jack Smith said yesterday, have said this is the weakest of all things. Like, this absolutely holds no water. And what I thought was interesting is that the January 6th commission came out with what they said, right, and all that kind of stuff. You had the second impeachment happen over that, right, and everything like that. And it was all about that he pretty much they pretty much said, he coordinated with the Proud Boys and with these groups, and coordinated and planned it and all that kind of stuff. And that's what the impeachment was, and that's what the hearing, bullshit hearings that happened, the January 6th committee. And then you have this come out related to January 6th, and it has nothing to do with the violence. It has nothing to do with motivating people to go up there. And I mean, you look at it, all the charges have to do, if you were to boil it down, at least the way I read it, I'm not a lawyer, nothing, and please correct me, but was coming down pretty much that he was spreading misinformation and didn't believe that he had actually lost the election. They pretty much all come to that he was trying to mislead people and take away their constitutional rights and stop the constitutional
And
process.
Hillary Clinton wasn't.
Right.
She was saying
But
the
Jack
same
Smith
thing
came
after
out,
the election.
Al Gore, Hillary Clinton, Stacey Abrams. It happens over and over and over, right? But if you go watch Jack Smith's announcement yesterday, 6:00, all he talks about in his 5 or 6 minutes is this was for the Capitol Police and the people that got hurt and the violence and da 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 da. So he took an apple and compared it to a Volkswagen Beetle. His charges have to do with a man who did not believe that he had lost the election, who had lawyers telling him there was a 5 to 10% chance. So pretty much he said, so you say there's a chance, right? And that he was saying it was not, and he thought the state should be relooked at and all that kind of stuff because there's some shady shit in Pennsylvania and Michigan, Wisconsin, a few places, Arizona, right, Georgia. But Jack Smith's comments, you would have thought that it was all about the violence and that Trump was right there leading the charge, like Epps was, right up to the Capitol steps, because that's all Jack Smith talked about. To me, when that happened, I was listening to that when it happened, when he came out and talked. That's when I went, oh, this case is built on bullshit, because his comments, he's trying to invoke emotion.
The public
and he's doing like
parts of the case
public,
are built
right,
on bullshit.
Right.
The legal is built on, questionable as well, but it has nothing to do.
Oh, very questionable, because the court is going to have to prove, from what I understand, it makes total sense. The prosecution is going to have to prove that he didn't believe that he really had a chance. How do you prove what is in someone's head, right? You can't. And if he had people around him, and they can, whether people told him that or not, but they have evidence where some of his pieces, hey, there's a 10% chance or whatever. And he really thought, and you look at those numbers and you watch that graph at 2 a.m. jump up, and you watch people get evacuated because there's a water leak, and you watch 2,000 mules and watch these ballot harvesting happens. Yeah. And targeted. And he only lost by, I think, what was the total? 21,000 votes or something like that, or whatever was the total based on the state electoral things. Right. He thought there was still a chance. How are you going to prove to a jury that he didn't really believe it? He still talks about it today. It's not like he gave it up, like, yeah, you're right, like, a year ago, and said, I guess I really did.
He never will.
He still says today, I didn't lose that election, right? And guess what? Tens and tens and tens of millions of people say the same thing, right? Yeah, say the same thing. The math doesn't lie. Joe Biden gets 80. Joe Biden, who failed 2 times before running for president. Joe Biden, who has plagiarized and all this other stuff his whole life, who never could get a presidential thing, all of a sudden gets 81 million votes more than Obama does,
After being in the
right? The
basement
darling
for the
child.
3 months leading up to
After
the,
never campaigning,
nope.
only won South Carolina, and only because Clyburn supported him, and he caved into Clyburn. He only won South Carolina? He broke every record and every tradition that has ever been in presidential campaign politics. He didn't win New Hampshire, Iowa, anywhere else. He won South Carolina, and the tides turned, and all of a sudden he started doing great, right? This thing, his campaign reeks of the same corruption that the DNC did to make sure Hillary got in over Bernie. Right, the same exact thing, but for them to indict him and convict him on that he believed he lost, I don't see that how they have it. Even if this judge is supposed to be a really tough judge on January 6th convictions, I don't see how it's going to hold up, and not in court, and definitely not in appellate court, much less Supreme Court.
Not at all. And I think it'll be the initial judgment, and then they're going to try and take it right straight to the Supreme Court and get it adjudicated there.
Yeah, and they're going to rule off the rule. I mean, again, you'd have to go back and try Hillary, Al Gore, Stacey Abrams, and you're setting a precedence. My God, you're setting a precedence, making us like every other country that we've always been asked to keep an eye on and be the beacon on the hill for, by saying, hey, if you don't agree with the outcomes of the election, you're committing a crime. You're spreading misinformation. Since when is spreading misinformation a crime in anyone's book? Anywhere. When is lying, short of lying under oath, to lie not under oath is not a crime.
Every
right?
campaign,
to go on to Twitter,
every political campaign in human history.
If you're going to convict a politician, one of the things, pretty much, as a politician, and he lied and misled the American people, you might as well round up all freaking 400, 500 something members of Congress, right? Governors, state assemblies, and everyone else that has ever ran for politics, and freaking start trying them all, right? That's the stupidest thing. That's like saying, hey, it's a crime for a lawyer to be unethical. Well, freaking A, man, might as well just convict all them dudes too. I mean, come on. That's how do they say, you know how politicians line, their mouths moving. I mean,
this is going to be something in the 2024 election cycle we'll never see anything the likes of again. This is going to be epic.
Yeah. So do you think it's going to help him?
I think this one is not going to hurt him as much as some of the others might.
Yeah, the one that is concerned is obviously the records. But then again, you got precedents with Hillary's server and Joe Biden's Corvette records and everything else, and records from when he was Senate. I mean, that one's pretty weak. I don't know much about the Georgia one. I know a little bit about it, but it doesn't sound like it has a ton either. Some things it's funny. People get wrapped around the axle like, well, he's indicted by a grand jury. Yeah, I don't think most people realize, a grand jury is a one-sided conversation. All it is the prosecuting presenting evidence with no counter, no disproving the evidence, and all they do is stack the deck and show a jury that's brought together for a grand jury they usually brought on for like a month or so, and they say, hey, here's all the evidence, Scott. Do you think there's enough to go to court? They go, yeah. That's all a grand jury is. There's no defense. That's bullshit. That's not the evidence. You got that illegally. None of that. It's just like, hey, here's everything we have. Do you think there's enough to keep moving on? Yeah, there's enough to keep moving on as per the charges you're bringing. Okay, we're going to court. Grand jury indictment means jack.
This is a legal procedure.
Its whole purpose, I think, and I could be wrong. I don't know if Rob's here tonight. Won't keep me straight. Excuse me, but I think its whole purpose is just kind of filter out some of the BS cases from just clogging up the dockets any more than they already are, right? And just having a whole bunch of crap. It's like, let's just do one more filter before make sure this has really got some merit before we bring it to a jury and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it doesn't bring much. I don't think it's going to hurt him, because I think the case is so weak, it's going to help him. I think it's so weak, I think if they didn't do this, I think he's going to come out stronger on this because they did it than if they didn't, he just had the other indictments. I think this one's going to help them because of the other indictments too. I think people are going to see this as just piling on. I mean, how's the guy supposed to defend himself He's got all these happening, and he's supposed to campaign. It really reeks of you're just trying to disrupt him from hitting the campaign trail,
I
right?
think the
And
biggest
even
part of this is this discovery phase. What they find out and what they're able to dig up will be interesting if they can get access to everything that they need.
do you think they're going to I mean, there's talks of they're going to have to relitigate every one of these questionable states. Is this going to provide them the opportunity to bring forward the discrepancies they saw in Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia,
Yes,
Michigan,
whether
Wisconsin? I
they
mean,
will be used as part of the decisions made in the trials, I think they're going to make them elements and presentable in order to make the public case for them.
I don't see how this thing even goes to trial before the election. I mean, they drag this stuff out. If they're going to bring all that in, they got to bring it all evidence. Both sides got to get a chance to go over it and all that stuff. I don't see how this thing is going to trial within the next year if they're going to relitigate as part of his defense to say this is why I questioned it, right? Arizona, all that kind of stuff. But
Yep,
yeah,
they've got 6 states: Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia.
is
Those
Nevada
I can
one?
think. Nevada,
You said
possibly.
Pennsylvania. Yeah,
Yeah, Pennsylvania.
yeah.
So that's
But
a lot.
yeah. Hey, but what about we talked a second ago about he controls the narrative? I mean, the media attention. I mean, people might as well be going, what other candidates on any party? I mean, it just seems to just everyone's. I mean, if today they were chasing his little convoy there going to get, I mean, they were just the media, the cameras are just everywhere. This
Same
is
thing
like
in
being back
Florida when I covered his second one. When they come down there,
yeah, you were there
it
right
was a
down the middle of it,
zoo,
huh?
right in the middle of it. In fact, I've got
Yeah.
pictures of them taking pictures of the crowd, and our cameras are in it. From his vehicle.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's just it's just like 2016, right? And just like 2020, this the whole, CNN, MSNBC and all them can say they hate him. But man, he brings in the clicks and the views. I mean, he definitely brings attention. And just like back then, the media, you couldn't, I mean, the rest of the candidates had to buy their TV time. He just has to wake up every day.
What was amazing about
But
the Miami visit
yeah, it's
was the convoy. It was presidential size. The number of cop cars and vehicles involved was enormous. I was very surprised. This wasn't just a couple of Suburbans and a couple of cop cars. No, this was a whole procession. Now, I
yeah,
don't know
and I'm
whether
sure
that
the one
was
today was
Miami
kind of
showing
that
off
way.
support or what, but it was big.
Right. Yeah. I remember seeing it from the helicopter views and all that kind of stuff and all that. Yeah. But I think New York was that way when he went up there for that one too. It was quite, but it doesn't take much to clog up traffic in New York. That's for sure. But yeah. So shifting off him a little bit. So what's your thoughts? We talked about Devin Archer. We opened up on some of the stuff coming out about Hunter and that kind of stuff. Is this? I mean, we have two major compelling news. We got Trump's indictments and stuff. You got the Hunter stuff, which involves obviously Devin Archer, the IRS whistleblowers and all that stuff. I mean, it almost seems like there's more stuff for the media to cover than they can possibly handle.
IRS and FBI whistleblowers. Yes.
Yes.
And there's much more
do you
to
think
come on those folks.
Do you think the Hunter Biden stuff goes anywhere? Do you think it's going to just try to fade away, or do you think it's going to stay in the forefront?
I think it's going to be staying in the forefront just as they keep releasing more and more info. But I don't see the GOP or those folks have enough backbone to do anything about it. Never have.
Well, I mean, what if it implicates the president, which is starting to do? I mean,
I don't think they have the backbone.
At what point McCarthy and him? I mean,
I really don't think they do. Look at Mitt Romney's response. How milk toast can you get for that?
Well, Mitt Romney's a rhino, anyways. But I would ask you about McConnell's response, but he didn't have much to say. He just stared. But but I mean, could there be enough that the constituents, that the American people sit there, go, okay, I mean, enough's enough. I mean, how much more will it take to possibly bring forward charges? I mean, not that it's going to go anywhere in the Senate, right? just like it didn't with President Trump. But how much more could it take to win some? And maybe it could. You got a mansion Semina, what's her name? The one from Arizona. I want to say Semina, but it's not that. But you know what I'm talking about. I mean, it could, but if there's more coming out, I mean, Joe Biden said on a couple times on the record he never knew about Hunter's business deals, this and that, whatever. You got Devin Archer saying, yeah, he was right there calling in, doing all that kind of stuff. I mean,
short of
I
Joe
don't know.
Biden rolling up in front of the White House in his Corvette with a trunk full of cash, they're not going to touch him. They don't have the backbone. Even to
sniffing on a young girl.
Even if they were to have a vote in the House, which could be, successful, and like you said, the Senate's not going anywhere. Even to get to that far, they're not going to do it.
Right. Yeah. Not unless they really wanted him. I mean, and I still say to this day, I said it, I think last week, Joe Biden learned well from Barack Obama. There's a reason why Barack Obama had Joe Biden as his VP for those 8 years. It was all about insurance. And if Biden had anyone more competent than Kamala as a VP, the 25th Amendment would already be exercised, or they'd be coming out with and stabbing Caesar in the back there, because they would do whatever they could to get rid of him, because he is a huge liability. But man, she makes it where they don't even want to get rid of him. So
they can't
we're
even
in trouble
about
if
replacing her for a re-election. They can't do it.
Right, that's what I was wondering. Can they? I mean, is there a chance that he could swap her out with someone else?
I don't know if you've noticed the stories lately, but they've been putting a big push on recapturing the black vote. If they dump Kamala, it'll hurt them.
They could help the black vote, because I don't think many black people are impressed with her either. But
they're not worried about the black people that actually vote. They're worried about those liberal white women that make it think like she matters.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, talk about being in a rock and a hard place. But unless something happens to her, I guess it'll be her, and they'll keep him around for sure. Unless he bails, unless there's some, convinces him that it's time to pull the eject lever and he bails beforehand. I mean, look, he hasn't campaigned at all. He hasn't done anything. He's on the beach for 10 days when everyone else are out there hitting it and getting after it. He's not doing anything, but yeah.
In his campaign headquarters is the basement of his house.
Is it really? Is it like, yes. Is that factual?
No, his campaign headquarters is his house in Delaware.
That's where every other presidential campaign headquarters is, like, an entire strip mall, like buildings and stuff. Hey, I mentioned McConnell earlier. We've got this, you can pick McConnell, Feinstein, Biden himself, even Fetterman, right? You've got these people that are obviously mentally and physically and medically incapable of filling the duties. McConnell's just old, but something happened to him the other day, and to have him just stand there, I'm sure you saw it, and then walk him off, and he came back out 10 minutes later, kind of act like everything's okay. I mean, the Republicans might as well be playing by the Democrat playbook. I mean, you're not even going to address it. You're not even going to mention anything. Say, hey, we're going to get him for a checkup. He may have just had a mini stroke or something. Look, he's a human person just like everyone else, right? But just to walk him back out like a robot and act like everything's okay. I mean, what are your thoughts, man? Should we have a 25th type of amendment or something for members of Congress?
You said something about a age limit. How about an IQ limit?
Yeah. So I've been. Yeah, there'd probably be many that would fail out of there, like Stalwell and a few others. But an age cap, right? One thing I've been thinking a lot about, it was mentioned, someone talked about it last week, and I'd already been thinking about it, was I've always been a big proponent of term limits, right? Senators serve 6 years, House members serve 2. I've always been one of, like, House members could serve, a term limit of 4 terms, and senators could do 2 terms, right? It's kind of been my thing. But then I started thinking about the age cap with all this stuff happening. And to give you an idea, and our listeners, some numbers here, when we look at the Senate, 54 are over the age of 65. 34 over the age of 70. 5 of them are over the age of 80. And of course, you got Feinstein at 90. Right? That's what we're looking at with that. In the House, no, I think that's just the Senate we're talking about. Yeah, I think it's just the Senate. So these are some numbers that Rob pulled up. Oh, here we go. 132 members of the House are over 65. The House is what, 432 members?
435.
Right? 435. So 132 over 65. Of that, 82 are over 70. Of that, 14 are over 80. So my one thing is like, well, maybe I look at what pilots can fly up to what, 62, 64.
62 years old.
Pilots can fly to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Military has an age cap. You can only be into a certain age in the military.
Unless you're a general officer.
Unless you're general officer, because you ain't really doing anything if you're
or a priest
officer, yeah.
or a doctor.
Right. A specialist of some type like that. Right. Mm-hmm. But it pretty much, if you're responsible for lives, it has an age limit. If you're a pilot, there's an age limit, even though we have a shortage of pilots right now. It would seem that members of Congress and or the president, which are also have a lot of lives in their hand that they're responsible for, or their hands, or could be, should maybe have an age limit too. And if you have an age limit, then you maybe really don't need term limits, right? You would catch them. Now, somebody could come in young as a senator or a House member and come in their 20s, or do something like an AOC and stay around for a while, but they're not going to stay in there like a Feinstein or some of these others that are 80 over. And I think my gut is I would say 70, maybe 75, but I would kind of think somewhere around that neighborhood should be like the cap. What do you think?
Yes, I definitely think there'd be some sort of limitation to limit the terms of power and the influence that you can grow. Feinstein's in there for one reason only. She carries her carry California, and she delivers on the goods. That's it. It just takes a lot of time to get those positions on those committees because of all the people that are involved. And the longer you stick around, the more you're guaranteed to get those key positions. That's the only reason they're there.
And then you sit there and you don't even know you're supposed to just say aye, and you start giving a speech, and you need other members of the Senate to tell you what to say and do. But I look at it and go, like I say, right now my gut is kind of saying 70 years old. Honestly, you're past the age of retirement. Go enjoy life. Why is Feinstein? She doesn't need the money. She doesn't need that, right? 70 should be it. People have cognitive decline. I'm only in my 50s and there's shit that I've forgotten already, right? People get different stages of dementia, or maybe they get Alzheimer's. You just, what? You can only feel so much crap in that noggin and you forget things. All right, whatever, but enjoy life and leave it up for people who are witty and smart, smart thinking and quick on their feet and understand stuff. I think we should have age limits. We have a minimum age to become president. Why is that? Wolf, do you know why the founding fathers determined a minimum age?
I believe it's for experience level. That somebody
because they want you to come in
35 just doesn't have it.
Right. They haven't done crap yet, like an AOC or something. But 35, they figured you've probably been around the block a time or two and done something. But after running around that block so much, you're probably a little worn out and you ain't as fast as you used to be. So I think just as much as there's an entry age limit, at least for the president, there should be a cap. And granted, the president has a 2-term term limit, but the age cap should still be there that you can't run for president if you're going to cross that age boundary. And look, I'll be honest, right? That would impact, if that was in law today, that would impact Trump and Biden. Well, there's some sharp. I got a neighbor who's 92 years old, who's freaking still out mowing his grass and has the best looking yard on my street because he used to be a landscaper, and he helps the neighbors at 92 years old, and he's about to turn 93, trim their bushes and weed eat and edge and that stuff in the hottest part of the day. And there I've met people that are sharper in attack in their 80s and beyond. But so 70 could be too low. Maybe it should be 75. But the bottom line is they're definitely well before 80. right, I think we should have an age cap and say move on with other stuff. Um, Maybe that and term limits would be great. I think it'd be hard to get either one of these through. But if nothing else, a term limit would also keep that from someone going too long, right? Unless they just
After we're
got elected
done
late
with
in life.
after we're done with Biden and Trump, I think the conversation is going to be brought up again. I think at that point, when we have a much younger president, I think they're going to take it up again and be serious about it.
Well, remember, it depends on when the election happens and who you like and don't like, whether you like electoral college or not, right? That was at one point people like the electoral college, and then there's another part where they don't like the electoral college. But yeah, so CB there, so our major sitting there going, retirement age at 67 for Social Security. Should be a mandatory retirement for elected and appointed positions. Maybe that's it. 67. There you go. But yeah, so I don't know. That's just that's my thought. You may be a minute or two older than me, so I don't know if you feel the same.
I just turned 60.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay, so if you ran, you'd get another good 10 years. You get 2 terms as president right now.
At least.
Right? You could do it. You're sharp enough. You could do it. But what do you think? Do you think 70 is a good age? 67, 80?
A very good friend of ours, which you may remember, I won't mention his name because I won't mention his age, took over as the Undersecretary of the Navy at 73. He was chief of staff for a senator up until that point, and he's still doing fine. He's heading a major state government agency right now. So I don't think age has been a detriment to him whatsoever.
So should there be a cognitive test then? There should be a mental cognitive test. Maybe should that be it? And
So
can you administer
subjective.
that impartially from someone?
It's
Right.
so
Right.
subjective.
That's a problem. Yeah. Tell me what you think this ink blot is. You say the wrong thing. Oh, you're freaking out of here. Right. Yeah. So maybe, that's a good point. So maybe, maybe age limit's not it. Maybe it should be just term limits or term limits up to a certain age. And maybe the age is 80. Cause like I say, there's some 70-year-olds that are sharper than freaking Woody Woodpecker. Right. But
still, I think the biggest part of this is the government functionaries that do things. I would love to see the presidential doctor put in a hot seat and say, tell me Biden is mentally functional 100%. I got to hear it. Ronnie Jackson would not have done that as the presidential doctor. No chance.
No. And he did it for a couple presidents. He was Obama's doctor, and then he was President Trump's doctor. And they have that Hippocratic oath, and they should be political party agnostic, if you would, and say, hey, he's good to go or not good to go. But yeah, I mean, obviously, some people have said, I've heard some people say, why do the Dems want to keep him in there? They don't want to, and like, yeah, they want to keep him in there. There's someone pulling his strings. They're fine with him being the face. They're ones that's all their decisions, ideas, and policies that are getting implemented. They're totally fine with him being the puppet, and they're pulling the strings. They don't need to be seen, right?
That's correct.
But everyone in the know, everyone in the Beltway knows who's in power, right? And
it ain't Biden.
Yeah, it ain't Biden. Could it still be Obama? Possibly.
If you read certain publications, they say it is, or it's his chief of staff through.
I mean, I would thought it was chief of staff, but Ron Klain left, and he left, and like, why would he leave if he had that much power and was, that kind of stuff? So, because I used to think all the time, and this before when Ron Klain was first his chief of staff, that it was him, that he was running this country as a shadow government, shadow president, I guess you'd say. But now I don't know. Who's running? Is it Dr. Jill, the doc? I mean, she the one doing it, but
I think she's as much influence as Eleanor Roosevelt had, if not more.
But yeah, Sergeant Major says, yeah, as he put in the comments, right? Theoretically, right? We're the he's on YouTube. Yeah, he's on YouTube. We're supposed to be the term limiters. But that just doesn't work out that way. Part of that is because, in my opinion, the Electoral College, but that's a whole other thing. I'm not a big fan of Electoral College, never have been forever. But Yeah, that is the idea, is that we would put someone in term limits. But when you control the media and you control the narrative and you control, all these other people of influence, then it's not really the people voting, right? So, and you allow mail ballots and no voter ID. I mean, if they put all those things in place, man, that popular vote would mean a lot more, you know. But yeah, so
And voter
I don't
registration
know. I don't know what
will.
people think. Yes, yeah. I mean, now you got Pritzker in Illinois. It's going to allow illegal aliens to be cops in Illinois, right? Not even, it's one thing to have citizens in this country voting. It's something else that you're going to allow them to become law enforcement, which, if they, especially in a place like Chicago or in Illinois, if they apply, they'll accept them on affirmative action requirements, of nothing else. We got to have so many illegals in here, and
But
they'll
this
get
is a
them in
very
just for that.
delicate argument because remember, the military, you don't have to be a citizen to join the military.
No,
You
but
can
you
get
can't
your
be an illegal alien.
true statement.
You gotta have your green card, right? He opened it up where people don't even have a green card, and they're here, right? And they can become a cop in Illinois. But yeah, like our good friend Toby, right? That's it. Toby went to Iraq twice as a Canadian citizen for the U.S. Army. So, it's and there's many people that have, but yeah, you got to have a green card. But I'm reading some of the comments here. So yes, our major says also, right, force them all government employees at age 65 to retire, pay them full benefits, make them go. I wouldn't say pay them full benefits. Whatever they can put in a freaking TSP, like the damn military can. They can invest part of their money into a retirement plan, I would say, and then they get Medicare, Medicaid, or whatever the hell the program. I'm not old enough to get it yet, so I can't keep up with it. I'll know it one day, but they can get that like every other worker can.
Give them a
Right? They're a
one-time
civil servant.
exception to take money they raised on campaign. If they retire after 3 or 4 terms, they can keep it and leave.
Yeah, they could do that if people want to give money for it to be that way. But they get a hefty paycheck. They get a good paycheck. They can invest it into the retirement plan, and Lord knows a lot of them buy stocks. And they can go out and get the same medical coverage the government provides other senior citizens. They can get the same damn thing, right? Just because they got elected does not make them better. They put their pants on one leg at a time. They were supposed to go up there and do a civil service duty for a little while, and then go back to their area where they came from and just represent the people. It wasn't never supposed to be a lifetime career. That's how they get disconnected. That's why we need term limits. But that's just me. What Star Major says also, Benny's comment good on YouTube tonight. Electoral college only applies to the presidency, and it prevents the Big Ten cities from being the solo election. Yes, I got that. I know it. It only applies to the presidency. So my argument for the or getting rid of the electoral college is because of that, those candidates only focus on those areas, those Big Ten cities. They only focus on the areas that they have to flip, and they only focus on swing states, and they don't go to,
North Dakota.
They don't,
Idaho.
Yeah, well, they didn't go to that. Republicans don't come to New York to campaign. Or I'm sorry, not Republicans. Democrats don't come to New York to campaign. Hillary had New York locked up. They don't go to areas that they know are fully red or blue or whatever. But if you made it popular vote and every single person's vote counts like it does in every other election, they would have to hit all 50. There's no electoral college. They've got to work and fight for every vote. Now, who has the energy for that? And you sure as hell ain't doing it from a basement, right? Who's got the energy to go out there and shake every hand, kiss every baby, hopefully not sniff their hair, and fight for every single vote? To me, that would thin the herd about who's willing to really want to be president or not, because it would be a freaking sprinting marathon. That's
but would that ensure that we have a less qualified candidate?
I don't know if it's sure you'd have a less qualified or more qualified. If anyone, I think you'd have a candidate that had stamina, right? I mean, I think you would have a candidate that maybe they get back on the old train whistle stops and all that kind of stuff. You watch those old, movies, right, Wolf, and things of like FDR or Lincoln, or ones where they're just going stop to stop to stop and just, doing a 10, 15, 20, 30-minute speech going on to the next place. They had to fight for every single one because we didn't have the media. We didn't have the media the way we do now, where they could just do it and it'd be broadcast over. There was no broadcasting. They had to go do it. I think getting rid of the Electoral College would bring some of that back. They'd have to go fight for every single vote. And I think people would not be as apt to be like, well, I'm a Democrat, I'm just going to vote Democrat. I never got to see that guy or gal. I never heard from them, but their name's there. I don't think people would be so apt to do that. I think they'd want to know who they're voting for. And they'd be like, well, this guy didn't show up, but this other guy did.
You're
it's kind of
giving
what we
the
saw in
average,
Wisconsin in
average
2016.
human too much credit.
Well, it depends on what you call average. I think the everyday average American is, the people in those big cities, maybe I'm giving them too much credit. But look what happened in Wisconsin. Hillary blew it off. She thought she had it, right?
Same
You
with
were
Michigan.
in that campaign season. Or Michigan. Was it Wisconsin? I mean, I'm thinking of
Michigan.
that. One of the two. Yeah. She thought she had it, never went there. Trump got it, right? To me, that's a micro view of kind of what I think would extrapolate if we didn't have the Electoral College. You blow off a state, you blow off an area, you may not pick that area up, right? And I think as politics have become more and more polarized, it's driving more people in the middle. People are sick of both the right and left. They're both, dumb
Very
and
much.
guilty of all kind of crap, right? I think most Americans want to consider themselves, or probably a greater number are considering themselves independent or very moderate, because there's not really one they like more than the other. I think they all kind of suck, right? But I think fighting for every vote would have that kind of impact. But yeah, anyways, sorry, my rant's over.
Whoa. Troy, you still with us? Oh, I think we just lost Troy, folks, tonight. He was just opining on whether there was a reason to keep the Electoral College or not. Give us a few seconds. Hopefully, Troy will be back with us. I think we lost his broadcast.
Okay, I'm back.
There he is.
I'm the one running the show. I don't know what happened.
I was just doing some of my Pee Wee Herman imitations while you were gone.
Well, which one? Not the one from the theater. Please, God, not the one from the theater. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I just moved something in my browser and I knocked myself right out. Yeah. Anyways, hey, we have a lot of topics. We're climbing up on an hour. Was there anything we didn't cover that you wanted to hit on, Wolf?
Not right now, but it's been a great evening. Lots to talk about, especially for a time when Congress is not even in session.
They're not, but thanks between whistleblowers, Devin Archer, Hunter, and Jack Smith, there's no shortage of things to talk about. And I'm sure the next big one is going to be if Georgia brings an indictment, and this sheriff in Georgia who's saying he's going to make sure President Trump gets a mugshot. And then we'll see what happens with this judge, who apparently is under a lot of hubbub today because she did not refer to him as Mr. President or President Trump. She just called him Mr. Trump. So that's
very
getting a
casual.
lot of people worked up. Yeah, which is kind of disrespectful to the office, whether you like them or not. But it's disrespectful. So, all right. Well, hey, if nothing else, we're just coming up on an hour. I don't want to go too long, and want to give people some of their evening back. But thank you so much for joining me, and thank you, Wolf. Everyone, please stay tuned in. We got a great show coming up next week. I'm talking to this wonderful woman, Gold Star mother, who started this awesome place down in Florida for our Warriors. We're going to be talking to her and learning about what they're doing down there just south of Tampa for our war fighters and first responders and helping them out. So got some good guests coming up. Going to have her on next week. And I think it's from My Warrior Place is the name of the organization. And we'll be talking to you guys then. Stu and the Nun website is still down. I only have so much time in the day. I have not had a chance to get the full restore yet with GoDaddy, but I will be getting the website back up as soon as I get opportunity. But you can keep tuning in here on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and all our socials, and liking our page and all that stuff. So with that said, Mr. Wolf, thank you so much. Everyone else, have a great evening, and God bless America. Thank you all, and we'll see you all later.
Thanks, Troy.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nun Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenun.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.